My name is Matilda Hartwell, and I'm 80 years old. For the past 50 years, I've been serving my family meals made with love. Passed down through generations of women who understood that food is more than sustenance, it's heritage, it's memory, it's love served on a plate. But last Thanksgiving, my 25-year-old grandson Marcus looked at my carefully prepared feast, laughed, and said the words that would change everything between us forever. "Grandma, your cooking is so outdated. No wonder nobody wants to eat this slop anymore. You should just order takeout like normal people." What Marcus didn't know, what none of my family knew, was that this outdated grandmother had built a culinary empire worth $12 million. All while they assumed I was just a lonely widow puttering around in her kitchen. Before I tell you what happened next, I want you to know that this story gets more shocking with every twist. If you're enjoying stories about family betrayal and sweet revenge, please hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell. It really helps our channel grow. And if you have your own story about ungrateful family members, share it in the comments below. We read every story and might feature yours in a future video. Trust me, after you hear what Marcus did next, you'll have plenty to say. Now, let me take you back to that devastating Thanksgiving dinner in my home in Charleston, South Carolina. The dining room of my Victorian home on Rainbow Row had never felt colder, despite the November warmth still clinging to Charleston's historic streets. I'd spent 3 days preparing that Thanksgiving feast, my famous herb-crusted turkey with sage stuffing, sweet potato souffle with brown butter pecans, green bean casserette with crispy onions, and my prized pumpkin bourbon bread pudding that had won the county fair 5 years running. 23 family members gathered around my mahogany table, the same one where I'd served Christmas dinners, birthday celebrations, and Sunday suppers for decades. My late husband Thomas had carved that first turkey at this very table 48 years ago, when Marcus's father David was just a toddler reaching for the cranberry sauce. But this year felt different. Marcus had driven down from Atlanta with his new girlfriend Stephanie, a food blogger with perfectly contoured cheekbones and a constant need to photograph everything. From the moment they walked in, I noticed the eye rolls, the whispered comments, the way they pushed food around their plates instead of eating. "Grammy," Marcus said, using the childhood name that once made my heart flutter. "You know we're all trying to eat healthier now, right? This stuff is like super processed and heavy." He gestured dismissively at my sweet potato casserole, the recipe my own grandmother had taught me in 1959. Stephanie nodded enthusiastically, her phone already out. "I mean, no offense, Mrs. Hartwell, but this is exactly the kind of food that's killing Americans. All this butter, all these carbs. I write about modern, clean eating." She snapped a photo of my table, probably for some blog post about outdated holiday traditions. My daughter-in-law, Patricia, Marcus's mother, shot them both warning looks. "Marcus, honey, Grandma worked really hard on this meal. I'm just being honest." Marcus shrugged. "Grandma, maybe next year you could just cater from that new organic place in Mount Pleasant? Or better yet, let me and Steph handle Thanksgiving. We'll do something more current." The table fell silent. 54 years of hosting Thanksgiving dinners, and my own grandson wanted to replace me with quinoa salad and gluten-free stuffing from some trendy restaurant. What Marcus and the rest of my family didn't know was that their outdated grandmother had been living a double life for the past 15 years. While they saw Matilda Hartwell, the widow who made too much food and fussed over everyone, the culinary world knew me as M.H. Charleston, the mysterious recipe developer and food consultant behind some of the South's most successful restaurant chains. It started innocently enough after Thomas died. I was lonely, the house felt too big, And I needed something to occupy my hands and heart. I began entering recipe contests under a pen name, just for fun. My Southern Comfort Chicken won a national competition sponsored by Food and Wine magazine. Then my Low Country Shrimp and Grits took first place in a Charleston restaurant challenge. Soon, restaurant owners were paying me thousands of dollars to develop signature dishes for their establishments. My recipes powered 3 James Beard Award-winning kitchens. My spice blends and sauce formulations were the secret behind to major food product lines sold in grocery stores across the Southeast. But I never told my family. After Thomas died, they'd all swooped in with their opinions about how I should live my life, what I should do with my time, whether I should sell the house and move to a retirement community. I discovered that my secret career gave me something precious: independence, purpose, and the delicious satisfaction of being underestimated. By the time Marcus insulted my cooking that Thanksgiving, M.H. Charleston Culinary Consulting had earned me over $12 million. I owned a commercial kitchen space downtown where I tested recipes for clients, a vacation home on Kiowa Island, and a diversified investment portfolio that would make my late husband's accounting mind spin with pride. But here's what really broke my heart. 3 weeks after Thanksgiving, I discovered that Marcus and Stephanie had been planning to ask me for money. Not a loan, a gift. $50,000 to help Marcus start his own food blog and YouTube channel, directly competing with established food personalities like the grandmother he'd just humiliated. Patricia let it slip during our weekly coffee date at Magnolia's. Matilda, I hope you won't be offended, but Marcus mentioned he might ask you for some financial help with his new business venture. He knows you've got some savings put away, and he's really passionate about this food blogging thing. Financial help from the woman whose cooking was outdated slop. I decided to test Marcus's true intentions. The day after my coffee with Patricia, I called him. Marcus, honey, I've been thinking about what you said at Thanksgiving about my cooking being outdated. I kept my voice gentle, grandmother-like. Maybe you're right. Maybe I should learn some new techniques. There was a pause, then Marcus's voice, suddenly much more interested. Oh, Grammy, I didn't mean to hurt your feelings. I was just trying to help you understand modern food trends. I know, sweetheart, and I was wondering, would you be willing to teach me? Maybe we could spend some time together in my kitchen, and you could show me these new, healthier ways of cooking. Another pause. I could practically hear the wheels turning. Actually, Grammy, that's a great idea. Stephanie and I were just talking about how we want to start documenting traditional Southern recipes and modernizing them. Maybe we could film some videos in your kitchen? Your house is so authentic and historic. There it was. My kitchen wasn't outdated when it could serve his purposes. That sounds wonderful, Marcus. And I know starting a new business can be expensive. If you need any help with equipment or startup costs, Grammy, you would do that. His voice jumped an octave with excitement, because actually, we were hoping to talk to you about that. We've got this amazing business plan, but we need about $50,000 to get started. I know that sounds like a lot, but $50,000? I interrupted, letting shock color my voice. Marcus, I'm just a widow on a fixed income. I don't have that kind of money lying around. The silence stretched uncomfortably. Then Marcus's tone shifted, becoming almost wheedling. But Grammy, I know Grandpa left you pretty comfortable, and this is family investment. We'd pay you back, eventually. Plus, think about it, your recipes could finally reach a modern audience. We'd be doing you a favor, really. Doing me a favor by taking my money to mock my cooking on the internet. I hung up that night and called my friend Margaret, the only person who knew about my secret career. Margaret had been my neighbor for 30 years and my confidant since Thomas's death, Matilda, she said after I explained the situation, that boy is showing his true colors, but you know what? Maybe it's time to show yours too. She was right. It was time for Charleston to meet Marcus face to face. I spent the next week crafting the perfect bait. Using my connections in Charleston's food scene, I created a fictional persona, a wealthy, reclusive food investor named Harrison Blackwood, who was looking to fund promising new culinary talent in the Charleston area. Through a series of carefully orchestrated coincidences, I had Margaret's nephew, who worked at a popular downtown restaurant, mention to his food blogger friends that this mysterious investor was poor, particularly interested in finding young entrepreneurs who could modernize traditional Southern cuisine and had significant funding available for the right concept. The story spread through Charleston's food community like wildfire, eventually reaching Stephanie's blog network. Within days, Marcus called me, practically vibrating with excitement. "Grammy, you'll never believe what happened. Stephanie heard about this investor guy who's looking for exactly what we want to do. Some rich old guy named Harrison Blackwood who wants to fund food bloggers and YouTube creators who can modernize oven cooking. We think we have a real shot." "That's wonderful, honey," I said, stirring imaginary ingredients in my kitchen while he talked. "Did you mention your family connection to traditional Southern cooking?" "Well, that's the thing." Marcus's voice grew uncomfortable. "We thought it might be better if we presented ourselves as, discovering these old recipes and updating them, rather than admitting we learned them from family. Investors want innovation, not just inherited knowledge." There it was. He wanted to steal my recipes, claim them as discoveries, and erase my contribution entirely. That makes perfect sense, I lied smoothly. "You wouldn't want to seem like you were just copying your old grandmother's outdated cooking." "Exactly. Grammy, you're so understanding. And the best part is, if we get this funding, we might not even need to ask you for that loan." But of course, he still wanted his backup plan secured. Over the next 2 weeks, Marcus and Stephanie visited me 3 times, each time with their cameras, filming themselves discovering my family recipes and discussing how they could improve them. Stephanie posed next to my spice cabinet, talking about finding authentic ingredients in unexpected places. Marcus filmed himself eating my biscuits while explaining to his future audience how traditional Southern baking used too much butter and needed to be lightened up for modern palates. They were building their audition reel using my recipes, my kitchen, and my hospitality, all while planning to cut me out of the story entirely. The final piece of my trap was a fake letter printed on expensive letterhead I had made at a Charleston print shop. It was addressed to me from Harrison Blackwood, expressing interest in meeting with Matilda Hartwell about her reputation as a keeper of authentic Charleston culinary traditions. I left the letter on my kitchen counter during Marcus's next visit. Seemingly by accident, Marcus took the bait. "Faster than a hungry catfish hits a cricket, Grammy," Marcus said, barely containing his excitement as he waved the fake letter. "Who is Harrison Blackwood, and why is he writing to you?" I feigned confusion, taking the letter and reading it with exaggerated surprise. "Oh my, I have no idea how he got my name. This is so strange." Marcus was practically bouncing. "Grammy, this is the investor I told you about. He wants to meet with you about your recipes. This is incredible." "I don't understand," I said, playing the part of the bewildered elderly woman. "What would a fancy investor want with my old recipes?" "Don't you see? This is perfect. We can set up a meeting, and I can represent you. You wouldn't be comfortable dealing with a big businessman anyway. I can handle all the negotiations and make sure you get a fair deal." There it was, the offer to protect me from the scary business world, while he positioned himself as the middleman who would undoubtedly take the lion's share of any deal. But the real betrayal came 2 days later. When my youngest grandson Jamie called me, upset, Jamie was Marcus's 19-year-old brother, a sweet kid studying culinary arts at Johnson & Wales in Charlotte. Unlike Marcus, Jamie had always genuinely appreciated my cooking and often asked for recipes to practice at school. Grandma Matilda, Jamie said, his voice shaking, I need to tell you something. But you have to promise not to let Marcus know I called. What's wrong, sweetheart? Marcus came to see me at school yesterday. He told me that you're getting old and confused, and that some businessman is trying to take advantage of you. He said the family needs to step in and help manage your finances before you get scammed out of your savings. My heart sank. Marcus wasn't just planning to steal my recipes and cut me out of his business ventures. He was setting up a narrative that I was mentally incompetent, creating justification for taking control of my financial affairs. He asked me to back him up if anyone questioned whether you were still capable of making your own decisions. Jamie continued, he said it was for your own protection, but Grandma, it felt wrong. You're the sharpest person I know. What else did he say? He mentioned that you'd been talking about giving away large sums of money, and that you were being contacted by strangers who wanted to take advantage of your valuable family recipes. He made it sound like you were being targeted by con artists. The picture became clear. Marcus was building a case that I was vulnerable and confused, setting the stage to have himself appointed as my financial guardian. Once he controlled my money, he could fund his business venture, claim my recipes, and paint himself as the responsible grandson who'd saved his poor, senile grandmother from being exploited. Jamie, I said carefully, would you be willing to come visit me this weekend? I think there are some things about our family that you deserve to know. I arranged to meet Harrison Blackwood at the offices of my longtime attorney, Robert Chen, on Broad Street. Robert had handled Thomas's estate and knew about my business success, so he was the perfect ally for what I had planned. Marcus insisted on coming with me, positioning himself as my protective grandson who wouldn't let his poor grandmother be taken advantage of. Why some slick investor. He brought Stephanie as backup, plus a small camera to document his successful negotiation on behalf of family. We gathered in Robert's elegant conference room, with its view of the harbour and shelves lined with leather-bound legal volumes. Marcus wore his best suit and carried a folder of what he called modernized recipe concepts based on traditional family formulations. Now, Grammy, Marcus said, patting my hand condescendingly, let me do the talking. These business types can be very aggressive, and I don't want you to feel pressured into anything. Robert smiled politely and opened a thick folder. Before we begin, I should mention that there's been a slight change in circumstances. Mr. Blackwood couldn't make it today, but he's asked me to handle this meeting as Mrs. Hartwell's legal representative. Marcus looked confused. I thought we were here to negotiate with an investor. In a way, you are, Robert said. He turned to me with a slight smile. Mrs. Hartwell, would you like to explain, or shall I? I stood up, shedding the persona of confused elderly woman like removing a coat I'd outgrown. Marcus, there is no Harrison Blackwood. I created him to test what you would do when presented with an opportunity involving my recipes and my reputation. Marcus's face went blank. What are you talking about, Grammy? I'm talking about the fact that for the past 3 weeks, you've been planning to steal my life's work, claim it as your own discoveries, and paint me as mentally incompetent so you could control my finances. Stephanie stopped recording. Face flushing red. Mrs. Hartwell, I think there's been a misunderstanding. There's been no misunderstanding, Robert interjected, pulling out another folder. Mrs. Hartwell, would you like me to share the documentation we've prepared? I nodded, and Robert spread papers across the conference table. contracts with major restaurant chains, signed with my business name M.H. Charleston, bank statements showing millions in revenue. Food industry awards and recognition letters, articles from culinary magazines featuring my work, with my photo the same grandmother Marcus had dismissed as outdated. Marcus stared at the papers, his mouth opening and closing like a fish gasping for air. I don't understand, Grammy, what is all this? This, Marcus, is what you dismissed as outdated slop. My recipe for low-country shrimp and grits is the signature dish at 3 James Beard Award-winning restaurants. My spice blends are sold in over 2,000 grocery stores. My outdated cooking has earned me $12 million over the past 15 years. The color drained from Marcus's face. 12 million? But you said you were on a fixed income. You said you didn't have $50,000. I lied, the same way you lied when you said you respected my cooking. The same way you lied when you promised to represent my interests with Harrison Blackwood, the same way you lied to your brother when you told him I was becoming mentally incompetent. Marcus sank into his chair. Jamie told you about that. Jamie is a good boy who was uncomfortable with your plan to have me declared unfit to manage my own affairs, unlike you. He still believes in treating family with respect. Stephanie had gone completely silent, probably calculating how this revelation would affect her blog and her relationship with a grandson who'd just been exposed as both greedy and stupid. Robert pulled out one final document. Marcus, your grandmother has asked me to prepare this cease and desist letter. You are no longer permitted to use any recipes, techniques, or culinary knowledge learned in her kitchen for your commercial ventures. Any attempt to claim her intellectual property will result in immediate legal action. But Grammy, Marcus pleaded, his voice cracking, we're family. You can't cut me out like this. I'm not cutting you out, Marcus. I'm protecting myself from being cut out by you. You wanted to erase me from my own story. You wanted to steal my work and claim it as your discovery. You wanted to have me declared incompetent so you could control my money. Tell me, how exactly is that family behavior? Marcus started to cry, actual tears running down his cheeks, not tears of remorse, but tears of frustrated greed. He'd just lost access to $50,000 in startup money, millions more in potential inheritance, and a treasure trove of valuable recipes he'd planned to steal. I never meant. I was just trying to help modernize. You were trying to help yourself. I said family, and in the process, you showed me exactly who you've become. That evening, Jamie drove down from Charlotte. We sat in my kitchen, the same kitchen Marcus had dismissed as outdated, while I made us both hot chocolate with real cream and homemade marshmallows. Grandma Matilda, Jamie said, shaking his head in amazement. I can't believe Marcus didn't know about your business. How did you keep it secret for so long? It wasn't hard, I admitted. Your family sees what they expect to see. To Marcus, I was just the old lady who made too much food and didn't understand modern trends. It never occurred to him that I might have my own expertise, my own success, my own life beyond being his grandmother. Jamie was quiet for a moment, then asked the question I'd been dreading. Are you going to forgive him? I considered this carefully. Forgiveness doesn't mean pretending something didn't happen. Sweetheart, Marcus showed me who he is when he thought he could get away with it. He was willing to steal from me, lie about me, and manipulate me. That's not a momentary mistake, that's a character flaw. But he's still family. Yes, he is, and I love him, but I also won't enable him to treat people this way. He needs to face the consequences of his choices and decide who he wants to be going forward. We drank our hot chocolate in companionable silence, watching the sunset paint Charleston's sky in shades of peach and gold. 2 weeks later, Marcus called. His voice was different, smaller, more genuine than I'd heard in years. Grammy, I've been thinking about what happened. about what I did. I want you to know that I'm ashamed of myself. I waited, letting him fill the silence. I got so caught up in this idea of being successful, of being seen as innovative and modern, that I forgot the most important thing: respect. Respect for you. Respect for our family traditions. Respect for the woman who taught me that cooking is an act of love. What are you saying, Marcus? I'm saying I was wrong about your cooking, about your capabilities, about everything, and I'm asking if there's any way you could ever forgive me. I looked around my kitchen at the same pots and pans I'd used to build a multi-million-dollar business while my family assumed I was just an old woman with too much time on her hands. Marcus, I said finally, come for Sunday dinner this weekend and bring Jamie. But leave the camera at home. We're just going to cook together the old-fashioned way. You mean it? I mean it, but Marcus, this time you're going to learn my recipes the right way, with respect, with patience, and with the understanding that they're not just formulas to be modernized, they're pieces of our family history that deserve to be honored. 3 months later, Marcus launched his food blog not as an exploitation of his grandmother's recipes, but as a celebration of traditional Southern cooking and the women who preserved these techniques across generations. His first post was titled "The Day I Learned My Grandmother Was a Culinary Genius." He never asked me for money again. Instead, he asked for something much more valuable: the stories behind the recipes, the history of our family's culinary traditions, and the wisdom that comes from understanding that innovation built on disrespect is just theft with better marketing, and sometimes on Sunday evenings, when my kitchen fills with the laughter of family members who finally see me as more than just a grandmother who makes too much food, I think about how the sweetest revenge is simply living well and letting people discover the truth about who you've always been. The lesson I learned: never underestimate the power of being underestimated, and never let anyone convince you that your worth is determined by their limited ability to see your value. Some recipes can't be stolen because they're seasoned with love, aged with wisdom, and served with the kind of dignity that can't be faked or replicated. If you enjoyed Matilda's story of turning the tables on family greed, please subscribe to our channel for more stories of wisdom triumphing over entitlement. And if you've faced a similar situation with ungrateful family members, share your story in the comments below. We read everyone, and who knows, your story might be featured in a future video. Remember, respect is an ingredient that can't be substituted, and family recipes are meant to be shared with love, not stolen for profit. Until next time, keep cooking with heart and standing up for yourself with wisdom.